This is Jessica.
And this is Kelly. And this is the Chasing Brighter
podcast. Hello, everybody. Today we have my friend Mary Ricciardi, who is the owner of Warrior Strong Wellness, and that is at warriorstrongwellness.com, which is a supplement company. And Mary shares her story with us. Kelly, this was a really powerful interview. What do you think about today?
Yeah. I mean, it was so awesome that she was able to share her story with us. I mean, just talk about girl power. Right? Being a mom of 4, being an entrepreneur, oh my gosh. And the amount of projects and, businesses that she's been into or non-for-profits. And also just sharing with us like a very personal story and the trauma of losing her son.
Yeah. And that being a catalyst for her to create a company that donates its proceeds to help.
Yeah. Cancer research for children. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. St. Baldrick's Foundation. Her company has given almost $50,000 to St.
Which is incredible.
Yeah, it is. It's pretty powerful. And so give it a listen and be prepared to hear, an incredible, powerful force and hear some of Mary's story. Well, thank you for choosing to come on and just share your story with us.
Absolutely.
I met Mary in my Reformers Pilates class, and Mary just exudes positivity and positive energy. And we would be talking about things. I know we share a passion for gut healing and gut health. And also Mary's daughter, Cassidy, is our social media manager. Just, to let everybody know that. But thank you so much.
She's awesome.
And we wanted to kind of just hear, a little about your story. Mary is the owner of Warrior Strong Wellness, a supplement company, and which I use. I love the collagen, and you've got me sold on ashwagandha. I'm sure we'll talk more about that. But we wanted to hear a little bit about your story, kind of how that came about, and so we'll kind of start there. So, how long have you had Warrior Strong Wellness?
Warrior Strong Wellness was kind of birthed in 2017, which was a year after I lost my son to childhood cancer. And it gave me a reason. I just kind of wanted a way to give back to childhood cancer research. And I also wanted to create a supplement line that didn't have any junk in it, and that I could recommend to clients and take myself, because I would have trouble finding, supplements that didn't have gargum and all the different additives and preservatives and junk in them. And I was just having a hard time finding those, and those really affect my stomach. So so I wanted some way to do that. And in the past, I was always in the wellness field. I have been a lifestyle expert for many, many years, like about 12 years, I think. And it was always, working with clients, life coaching. At one point, I was a fitness trainer. I don't do that anymore, but and there would always be people asking me, Mary, what should I take for this? What should I take for this? Right. And I would have a really hard time finding supplements that I really felt good about referring. So I decided, my husband actually helped me decide, since it was only so close after my son died. I was extremely, for obvious reasons, in a bad place. My gut was a mess. It was, my head was a mess. I was still in fight or flight mode. But I thought, well, maybe I'll, look into developing supplements that actually will help myself. Because I need some help. I need some help with my gut. I need some help with my mind. I need some help with my brain and the whole thing. And, I just thought, if I need that, at least some other warrior moms might need that too. And maybe other moms or other people will just benefit as well. So that's what I kind of set out to do, is finding supplements that help with primarily gut health, immunity, and longevity. I'm almost 52 years old, and, it's not getting any easier, girl. It's really hard to like stay, in that, have vitality. And I don't want to not be able to do exercising and not be able to do things as I get older. So my supplements just really help with all of those things. Like I said, the longevity part of it, the joint health, which we can talk a little bit about, but the gut health was primarily my first thought was like, my gut's a mess because I've been through so much trauma, and between my brain and my gut, it's all, connected. So that is why I thought, let's just start with that. And so my first two products, the first one was the bone broth collagen, which primarily helps your gut health. It helps with bone health, just complete vitality. We have like 85-year-olds that are hiking, because they couldn't before because they were having a lot of pain. And then the second product we had was ashwagandha, which I know you touched on a little bit, Jessica, which is primarily life-changing for me, because it just changed my life. I mean, those two supplements alone, between helping with my gut and my mind a little bit, really seriously changed so much for me. And the ashwagandha is crazy because I looked into it and I thought, what is something I can do that's not a medicine, and it was what came up, and I really researched it, and I realized you have to take a certain amount. You have to take enough ashwagandha for it to work, especially if you're, I guess, in that stress response where I was, but we're all pretty much been in a stress response for a while now, especially since the pandemic. There isn't anybody that isn't in a stress response, I think, on a daily basis. It could be a really bad stress like I was going through, but I'm just saying, like, that's what ashwagandha does. It's an adaptation.
Does it help reduce your body's production of cortisol, the stress hormone?
It helps balance it.
Okay.
So the coolest thing about an adaptogen is that it actually, the reason it's called an adaptogen is because it will adapt to what you need. So if your body is like your cortisol levels, let's say you wake up in the morning and you're just exhausted, and then you go to bed at night and you're wired, that's a huge sign that your body is in the wrong kind of cortisol balance. So you should be flipping that, right? So I always recommend to our customers that they take it twice a day. The reason being is that it regulates throughout. So you need to have it twice a day. You can't just take it in the morning and expect it to do as much as it would if you did it twice a day. So I personally take 2 of our capsules in the morning and 2 at night, 2,400 milligrams of ashwagandha. You can take a lot of ashwagandha, and a lot of people will say, I tried that. It didn't work for me. Well, that's because they probably were taking it inside of another supplement where it had like 150 milligrams.
Okay.
And I've found that most people need quite a bit amount. So that's what we recommend is, someone, unless they're really, really, tiny person or something. But I found that, 1 to 2 pills in the morning, 1 to 2 pills at night work great for most people. For myself, I take 2 in the morning, 2 at night. And in the morning, I usually do it a little bit before my workout. And that's going to give you a little bit of a boost of metabolism as well, and give you a little more energy, but not like the energy where you're like bouncing off the walls or anything like that. Just like make kind of like an overall peaceful feeling. And then in the evening, I take it about a half hour before bed. And that's going to help you to calm down, to release some stress hormone, of course, and get those cortisol levels balanced and help you to sleep and rest well.
We both worked with functional providers and started taking a lot of different supplements. And we were taking the cortisol manager with some ashwagandha. Kelly, are you taking any ashwagandha or?
Well, I take the cortisol manager, but now I need to look and see. I don't know how many milligrams the ashwagandha is in there.
I think it's
it just depends on you. Everybody's different, so you want to just look into it. But ours is the organic, pure ashwagandha. And then it, of course, has the biopurine in there, which is a registered trademark of the black pepper extract. And that's another thing. If it doesn't have that in there, it won't absorb into your body properly. Okay. And so you need to make sure that in certain supplements, that one being very important, that you have the black pepper extract in there, because if you don't, it won't even absorb into your body. You'll just urinate it out. So that's another thing to think about. If you're taking a supplement that has several different things in there, if they don't have something that helps it absorb,
it's not bioavailable.
Not going to be.
Got it.
Yeah, exactly.
And Mary, you talked a little bit about for a lot of your clients, like it helps them sleep. What are a lot of the benefits that you've seen, even what they've experienced in terms of taking ashwagandha?
Well, first of all, sleep for sure. Just feeling like an overall sense of peacefulness in throughout your day, less chaos, less stress response where, you tend to react instead of just be like, okay, let me take a minute, because if you're in that fight or flight, which is what I was in, and, still get in sometimes, I think that, there's days where I've taken even an extra one because I'm just having a lot of problems, maybe, especially in the past before I did start doing therapy for EMDR. With one of the reasons that it helped me is the life-changing thing for me was that it helped me with my grief. So when someone's experiencing grief, when they're experiencing something like a trauma or some kind of a major stress problem that's, more than just, I'm stressed because my workday was bad. So there's different ways of your body handling things. And, I've found that it's just very important to realize what you need. So somebody can call me and talk to me about it, but I found that I needed a lot more than most people at first, I had to take it twice a day, but I still take two in the morning, 2 at night. So I don't know. I guess it just matters on the person too, but they can get all kinds of benefits. There's even some results in people trying to have a baby. You can get fertility help. However, it's not best to take it while you're pregnant. So just because they found that it can, it could cause miscarriage or something like that if you were pregnant. So that's something obviously, we would tell someone to stop it right away. Or a diabetic, for instance. I mean, anytime you take a supplement, you always want to ask your doctor, especially if you're taking other medications, because it can have the ability to lower some blood sugar on people. So you want to be really careful of that, as well as if you're taking any other medication, I would recommend not just for my supplements, but any supplements that you decide to take, you want to make sure that you ask your doctor first and just bring it in or send them, a picture of what the ingredients are and say, hey, can I take this? I've had no problems. I mean, most of my customers, some of them are on medications and they've all been really good, but you just never know, so it's always good to ask your physician and see what his thoughts are on it.
And what about the bone broth? Sorry, Jess. What about the bone broth supplement?
So we have a bone broth and we have a multi-collagen. The bone broth, it has bone broth and collagen in it, both bovine. And I found that the bovine bone broth collagen works best for the gut. It's just tends to, and autoimmune type stuff. It just helps with pain. I have a good friend that actually had problems with her back for years and it helped her with that. I mean, it's kind of weird. It's certain things, just help people. Wounds that don't close, sometimes it will help with that. Wow. But the gut, it primarily heals and seals the gut. And it takes some time to do that. If you take it on a regular basis, it will help with that. So if you have a tendency to just either have two issues. Sometimes people go to the bathroom too much, or they can't go to the bathroom with constipation or something like that. They may have what's called a leaky gut. And so the leaky gut is interesting. I guess the best way to explain it in a layman's terms is if you think about having a fish net and you throw some little balls in there, like ping pong balls, and they fall right through the net. So that's what happens when you have a leaky gut. So if you do, then you're going to eat everything you eat. You're not going to absorb those nutrients properly. So it's really important that your microbiome is healthy. And I mean, they've been doing tons and tons of research on it now. And that is one thing that can really cause, and trauma can also cause problems with leaky gut, not just what you eat, or maybe, you're drinking too much Diet Coke or whatever. I mean, there's so many things that fall into place with leaky gut, or like a uneven microbiome. It could be sugar, it could be the foods you're eating, but trauma, I've found, has a big, huge part of that, because, it's extremely, we all say, well, I get a gut feeling. Well, that's the truth, right? If we're having issues with our brain and we're having issues with our emotions, it's going to start to happen in your gut. It's going to make you're going to have people, little kids will say, I have a tummy ache. It's the same. It's like your body has a tendency to just react in that way. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's vice versa. Like, research shows our brain impacts our gut and our gut impacts our brain, right? So poor gut health can cause anxiety and depression, or like you're saying, a trauma can cause leaky gut. Just how our gut is also called, the second brain. And
absolutely.
And take care of that.
I mean, and the main reason that is because of the vagus nerve. So I don't know if you've heard of that, if your listeners have heard of the vagus nerve, but it's super important because it runs from the brain all the way down to the abdomen. So the vagus nerve's purpose is to link the brain with other parts of your body. So everything, like sensations like touch, sound, taste, all originate from the vagus nerve, and as well as your throat, your heart, your digestive tract. So that's why the brain gut, they say your second brain is in your gut, because damage to the vagus nerve is tied to like a wide range of issues, from trouble swallowing or heart rhythm issues, and mainly digestion. So that's why it's so important to heal your gut, because if you don't, then you're going to have a lot of issues, because the vagus nerve also makes up the largest component of the body's parasympathetic nervous system. And the parasympathetic, I always have a hard time saying that. The parasympathetic nervous system is a part of the automatic, nervous system that controls all the functions in the entire body at rest. Mm-hmm. Okay. So that's why, sometimes we think, oh, well, it's the sympathetic nervous system that controls our fight or flight response, but the parasympathetic nervous system controls the body's rest and digestive functions. So, and ideally, if you're managing stress correctly, then you're going to be working great with all your nervous systems. But if you're not managing stress correctly, and, then you're going to have a lot of issues. And I know that, I'm sure that you guys know more than me, but I've heard and read that treatment for depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, and inflammatory bowel disease has all been, linked to having a proper vagus nerve connection there, so they're starting to really realize that trauma starts in the gut, and it's kind of like a correlation between the brain and the gut. So that's why it's so important to take care of our gut. And we have several products, like we have a greens product and a multi-collagen that all kind of go with that, to detoxification and the gut health, and those supplements are all really good for you. But, you also, I found that, other things help too, with that whole system. Like in our systems are trying to, feel better about ourselves all day long. Like it's going to be fighting against you. That's why they call it fight or flight. But the supplements have helped me tremendously, but also just eating well helped tons, just the basic stuff, like moving your body on a regular basis. Yeah. Supplements, of course, and reconnecting with nature, I think is awesome, to go out for a nice walk and like breathe in the air and look at the birds, and, taking a moment and just being like, okay, I'm okay. I'm okay. And then two things that helped me tremendously was, doing diaphragmatic breathing exercises, and then, like I mentioned, EMDR therapy. So those are the things that I've found that just helped me to heal through these last 6 years since my son passed away,
And EMDR is a brain-based intervention. I don't know, Kelly, are you familiar with EMDR?
No, I'm going to go with
So it's eye movement desensitization and reprocessing therapy. And I am not trained in EMDR. I actually am trained in brain spotting, which is another brain-based therapy. But basically, our brains have neuroplasticity. Our brains have quadrillions of connections, and we have the ability to change the connections. And so with these brain-based interventions and brain-based therapy, is for trying to reprocess, right? Reprocess particularly the trauma for EMDR and for brain spotting as well. Both of them were created to interventions to reprocess trauma. And so what had you, so it sounds like, Mary, I relate so well because anytime anything happens to me when I have a trauma, I look back and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I had a miscarriage and we were really devastated. We lost the baby and I started training for a half marathon. I'm not kidding you. I think it was like 48 hours after I had a procedure. And I'm like, what happens? And I look back and I just like dive into things. And it's like, now I have to be very aware, like when something happens, like take a minute. Are we processing this? Are we living in it? Are we you know what I mean? And so it's like you're already passionate about health and wellness, and you're looking at ways to heal yourself from within. You start your own company, you dive in, and then it's like, wait, there's still so much grief, right? There's still so much grief to reprocess. So what had you choose EMDR?
Well, so my son Cooper had childhood cancer, and he was sick from he got sick when he was 15, and he passed away when he was 18, and that was 3 and 3 months or whatever years of what I didn't understand at the time, but constant trauma, constant PTSD. And so even though he had passed and I knew, probably about 3 months before he did pass that he was going to, I guess I didn't really realize, it wasn't like a sudden thing, but I still didn't think that he would ever die. And I think what happens is you hold a lot of that in your subconscious mind and you just kind of pack it away. Like, I can deal with this. I can deal with this. And granted, I had 3 other children to deal with, my husband and everything. And so he and I had been away at the end there out of the city. We went to City of Hope in California, because I just tried everything to save his life, of course. And so it wasn't just the stress of taking care of my son, who was very sick. It was also the stress of knowing that I had 3 other children at home, that, my husband's working, and everybody was trying to pitch in as best they could. But there was just so much, in some ways, guilt for my other kids because I felt so terrible that I couldn't take care of them. And there's always this thing where, I'm a mom, I'm supposed to take care of my kids. And mine died, mine didn't make it. And I know I can't blame myself for that, but there's all this underlying trauma that starts in. So I tried to talk to a few therapists, but nothing really worked. And a lot of times they would even seriously be so honest with me, like, this isn't going to get any better. And that was okay, because at the time it was so fresh and I was just a mess, But then my daughter actually tried EMD therapy because she was also struggling so bad, my oldest daughter. And Cassidy, the one that you mentioned before, that does our social media, and she got a lot of help from it. She was also involved in when Vegas had that terrible shooting at the country concert, Route 91, I think it was called. And she just had a lot of trauma built up. So she took that on. And then she told me, Mom, I really think you need to do this. And so it wasn't until after about 5 years I went into the EMDR therapy. And last year, it was about a 7-month process of me going almost every other week. And it's the way my EMDR therapist worked. She put these things in my hands, they were like these little things that would vibrate off and on. And she would ask me questions. I had to close my eyes. It wasn't like I was in a trance. And half the time I was pouring out tears. Like I can't even, there was so many, could have been buckets of tears throughout those 7 months. I could have like filled part of Lake Mead. I'm serious. It was unbelievable how much was stuck inside that I didn't think was there. I mean, I cried every single day for the first year, after losing my son. So I couldn't possibly have anything left. But it was all stuck inside. And, that we have this way about us, I think, as women, that we feel that we have to be strong all the time. And even when we go through something terrible like that, and that's so untrue. Like we have to feel, and we can't, I like to say, we have to feel it so we can heal it.
Yeah,
because if we don't feel it truly, then we're never going to get better. And that's kind of where it was at. And I did have in my head, like, I'm never going to get better. And no, I'm never going to get over losing my son. That's never going to happen. But I can function better now, knowing that so much of that subconscious stuff that was inside of me and trauma has been taken away. And I don't really understand what was happening, but like the first month or so, it was a blur, and I just was emotionally drained every single day. Like it took every part of me out. I went to Pilates because that was my only way I could exercise. I mean, I went for walks too, but it wasn't like I could really function on strength training or anything too hardcore, like HIIT or anything like that. It was just like, okay, I'm going to move my body a couple times a week and walk a little bit here and there. But that was about all I did other than therapy. And, of course, run my business the best way I could at that time. And just be a wife and a mom and stuff like that. My kids are older, but they're, they still need me. And so it just was very it was interesting. Like I can't explain it and how it works, but it worked. And little by little, I just started feeling like this refreshment. Like it was like, I mean, I wasn't having to do my breathing exercises as much because I was doing those every day and it was helping, but it wasn't helping as much, as the EMDR. And everything just started to feel like better. Like I was starting to feel like old Mary. And it's so sweet that you say that, Jessica, that I was, joyful or, positive, because I didn't feel that way at all, So I don't know. I just think that naturally is the way I am. But inside of my body, I didn't feel that way. And it was terrible. It was terrible because that's the way I want to be. And that's the way I think I'm made to be. But when you're feeling that way, and when someone's depressed or has a lot of grief, they can't really get it out. And I felt like EMDR did that for me, as well as just being a little bit more honest with myself and other people and putting up really good boundaries and like giving myself only so much to do. Because when you're suffering with grief, and it doesn't matter if somebody like lost their child 10 years ago, if they didn't take care of this healing, they're still going to feel the same way. And I've realized that. And there's still bad days. I'm not like, woohoo, it's all sunshine and rainbows now. It's not like that, but it's definitely better. I mean, I couldn't even say Cooper's name or tell any part of our story and without bawling and just losing it, and now I'm able to say somewhat of it. I don't like to go into a lot of details because that's really hard still. And my therapist said, I don't have to. She's like, you can get to it just enough.
No, but I think it's part of your story. And I love that you share about Cooper just as far as part of your story, because I think that helps break shame, or even when I say about my miscarriage, no one talks about anything and then you don't know, right. But just to say like, I had a son, he died of childhood cancer. So I started my business and, just like that you're sharing that, I think is so incredibly powerful. And there's so much strength and vulnerability. And you're right. You don't have to go into it. And people are inappropriate, right? Yeah. We don't have to go into details, but just sharing that, because I think then, I think that's helpful in healing for others, right? When we share our story.
Absolutely. And there's a part of a mom that has lost their child that they never want to not include that other person,
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that makes me cry because if I can't just be like, I have 3 girls. Yeah. I can never do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you never, ever want someone to forget your child.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's probably one of the biggest things that people forget, like they think that you don't want them to be talked about because they're nervous. They're like, ooh, I don't want to say his name, or you know what I mean? But if I could give anyone advice, that is the very last thing that a grieving mom or anybody that's lost a person that they love wants. Because they want to hear your story that you have about their son,
absolutely,
or their child, or their mom, or their dad, like whoever they lost. They want to hear that story because that makes them feel completely part of their life still. Because I'm still a mom of 4.
Yeah,
my son just lives in heaven. Yeah. He's still my son every day. And that's
you're doing the work, right? You're doing the work, and I think that's so evident, right? That you can. I love the way that you talk about Cooper. And I it seems to me that you've struck that balance, right? Of being able to be able to celebrate his life and to still bring him into conversation and talk about that. And I think that's so healthy. As a therapist, people hide things, and that's so terrible for us. And to be transparent and share that. And the more you do that, that's just part of your story and part of who you are. And again, there's no shame in it, I think that's just incredible.
No, I don't. I always just talk about my son. Like, I don't always say he passed. I just talk about him. Like, if someone asks me, how many, because the hardest question for a mom that has lost a child is, how many kids do you have? Because we always kind of like, what do we say? That what happened to me in Target. The very first time someone said that to me after Cooper had passed, I was in line and this lady was talking to me and she asked me that question. And it wasn't the best situation because I started looking at her like, oh my God, it just took me down. But, people don't realize that question can be harmful to somebody who's just lost their child or anybody. As well as you, like even a miscarriage, that was your child and it's hard, and I think that's the thing that's changed me a lot is I'm much more compassionate when it comes to talking with people. And, I don't ask questions like that because even the question, like a question like, oh, do you have kids? Because what if that person can't have kids or they're trying or they don't want to have kids? You know what I mean? Like those might be questions that hurt. So I've learned to just be really quiet at times and just be a listener. And definitely small talk is not my favorite thing, but I think it's taught me to just be a different person in that way and just have compassion for the way they want to live their life. Maybe they don't want children. I shouldn't ask the question, do you have kids?
I think you don't mean to, but it's like, we talked about like the taming or how society puts, all these rules on us and you don't mean to, but like, are you married? Are you, like you ask a question like, what do you do? Are you married? Do you have any kids? Do you want to have kids? Do you want to have more kids? And it's like, you don't even realize you're just like, you could be spewing out shame and guilt and harm to people. But that's like what society put on you. And so that's such a good point to bring up, like just of us being very mindful and purposeful when meeting people and thinking about whether we're putting kind of shoulds out there, if that makes sense. Oh yeah, absolutely. I do agree. And I think like too, it can be like you're having this great day and then something like that happens and it just takes you down. So I'm really cautious about how I speak with people now. And I just kind of, I sometimes even just the word, how are you is kind of tough because it's so like, we can't just be like, dang, I'm having a terrible day. Like who does that, And, but now I do that, especially with people that I know well. I don't just say that because it's a stranger at Target, but you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just easier for me to say, you know what, I'm having a terrible day today. And that's okay. I'm missing my son and I'm having a really crappy day. And it's okay to be like that. It's okay to not be strong. And it's okay to just,
it's okay to not be okay, right?
It's totally okay to not be okay. And I was fine with not being okay, but so I will say it's okay to not be okay, but I feel like it is your responsibility to get okay.
Yeah.
And I never thought that way. I didn't, because to be honest, I wasn't a huge therapy fan. But I am now. And I do really think that EMDR changed my life because it taught me to not hide my feelings, as well as it got out all that stuff in my subconscious, which I think a lot of us hold, things from our past. And it could be that you don't even realize it as an adult, what you're doing, because it's something that you held on to from your childhood. And so it's all of that it does to help you to bring that out. And it just, the gut health and the brain health and all of that comes together, because if you're still, even if you're doing all those things, like I said, eating well, moving your body, breathing and eating good foods and taking supplements, it's going to help some. And like you said, Jessica, like that's what I was doing. I was doing all those things, and I was, trying my best to exercise all the time, because that does help some. And then of course, helping other people is something that I sometimes do too much of. And I was doing all that, but I forgot to help me. And I realized last year, after 5 years of, the loss, it's been 6 years now, but it was time for me. It was time for me. And my kids were, pretty much all pretty good. And I was okay. It was okay to say, you know what? I need to take care of me now. It's time. And that's what I think everybody.
Yeah, and you bring up a great point that there are all kinds of therapies too. Like I think people think of just traditional talk therapy, but that's what there are therapies, right? Like I know, because I'm more familiar with brain spotting. With brain spotting, you're just like looking at a brain spot. Like if you don't want to talk about it, you don't have to talk, right? There are powerful interventions that we can do that are all different, not necessarily just kind of, talk therapy. And also when you say like, moms, this is what Kelly and I always talk about too. But when you're saying moms always need to be strong or saying everything's fine, it's like, I love vulnerability and I love honesty. And if more of us could be like, how are you doing today? You know what? I'm not doing that great. I burnt breakfast. I'm not, I don't know how we're going to manage finances this month. And, and my son's out of control, or, whatever it is. And it's just like, okay, wow. Cause I thought everything was perfect and everything was wonderful in that person's life. And it's like, okay, we're not, I'm not a failure. Whew, like someone else is struggling too.
Yes. Absolutely. I think if we all did that, it would be a better world, because I think it would be less pressure for everybody. And I think, especially these last years or whatever, where social media is so prevalent and, a lot of people are putting out there that everything's perfect, but it's not. And it's not perfect for any of us,
No.
And I think that the more that we can just be open and honest and maybe get away from that social media world and just be like, hey, you want to go have coffee and just be with someone and have a friendship, like, talk with somebody that you truly want to talk to. If you feel like doing that, I think you're going to get a lot more out of that, that human connection.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. I love, and it's like, that's what was happening for you too, that like you were saying, it's on you to heal. And you were like, I was doing all of the things and it wasn't working. And I think that's important for us to always be reevaluating and troubleshooting. Like I'm doing all the things, but it's not filling me with joy. It's not filling my cup. It's not working. And that's okay. Right. Then we look at it again. And as we go through the life cycle, what worked 5 years ago doesn't work now. And that we're always kind of re-exploring that. And I wanted to touch into, anything that you're kind of reading, watching, listening to, that helped you on your journey, or that's really got you motivated right now?
Yes. Well, my faith has always been a part of my life. And so I read scriptures, and to be honest, when I was in deep in grief, that was the last thing I wanted to do. And sometimes people are like, you just need to get into the Bible, or you need to do this. And I mean, they have well-meaning things that they could say to you. They're trying to help. Believe me, I think everybody's intentions are good, but that is at least the last thing you should ever say to someone going through that kind of a situation, because their journey is their own. And so for me, like now when I feel like, reading the Bible or reading, scripture or devotional, those kind of things help me personally, because it reminds me like of where my strength comes from, me personally. And then I love the book. It helped me a lot. I'm actually super like active. I'm not much of a book reader where I sit still. So I like to do audiobooks.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. We're big fans.
I'm a huge audiobook person. I don't think I would read ever if I didn't have audiobook. I even listen to my Bible sometimes like that. If I'm really feeling like listening to something like, and it doesn't always work for people, but for me, I love walking and listening to books. Mm-hmm. That's just my thing. But I like that Mel Robbins book, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Have you ever heard of it?
Mm-hmm. The 5 second, is it 5 second rule or 5?
5 second rule.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. That's what it's called.
Yeah.
I was just thinking of her thing, but with 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 is what she says to do. Like if you're stuck, and I found that I was stuck a lot, and I used that quite often, to get out of bed, put my feet on the floor, go for a walk, go for a little workout. And that was one of the reasons why I started going to Pilates studio too, because if I had the appointment, Jessica knows we get charged if we don't go. So that's a really good way.
That's why I'm going.
Right? And go work out, because you don't want to get charged the money if you don't show up. So that was a grief, way of me getting myself to go.
Yeah.
And then usually after I got done, I would want to go for a walk if it wasn't too hot, or something, because it's like once you start doing one thing, like, oh, I got out of bed. Okay, now I'm going to Pilates, or I'm going to the gym, or I'm going to, go for a walk with my friend or whatever. Then I feel like you can just like, get better all throughout the day. And it doesn't mean you won't get stuck again, but I love her book for that reason. She definitely cusses a lot in the book. It's super funny, but it doesn't really like offend me, but some people I'm just letting them know. But she's, I don't know if you follow her on social media. She's really good. She has a lot of stuff out there too, that just helps people. And she's talk about vulnerable. I feel like she's a very real person. I like her a lot.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
that's a great
kind of just tells it how it is. And she definitely struggles with anxiety and different things, which a lot of us struggle with. So, there's a really good book actually that I'm reading right now. I should tell you about this. It doesn't have anything to do with grief or being, stronger, but it has to do with your health. And it's called Life Force. And it's by Tony Robbins and a whole bunch of his team. It's like literally the longest book of all time. Like it's almost like a Bible or something that you have to like take parts of it. But I'm listening to it. And because of it, I have like 5 credits on my Audible because I'm still trying to get through this book.
Man.
It's so interesting, but it's also very lengthy. I feel like they could have cut it in half and it still would be interesting.
But probably spin off 20 books after that book. Well, Mary, I think you're also such an inspiration because we talk about it a lot where you never stop learning, right? Always seeking more information, always seeking ways to sort of broaden your horizons. I love your story and I love hearing about your products too. I can't wait to try them. Jesse introduced me to the bone broth. That's what you brought, right? In Cooperstown, Jess?
Yeah.
That was really good.
The bone broth collagen.
Yeah.
And I was
it's really easy to use too. Like the collagen, I use, we have a multi collagen too. So the multi collagen helps with like the skin more, for us older ladies, and also the joint health, recovery from exercise. So what I do is I put a scoop of the multi collagen in and a scoop of the bone broth in my coffee. And then I just add a little bit of almond creamer and froth. You have to use a frother because our collagens are not going to mix like everybody else. Okay. And I'll tell you why, because we don't put any additives or preservatives in there. And a lot of them do. And that's why it mixes so good. The multi-collagen will mix pretty easily, even with a spoon, but I always just like to use the frother because it makes it all frothy. But the bone broth won't, because it has a much more denser, so it might get clumpy if you don't mix it up. Or you could just put those two, and I use our greens and I put them all into a smoothie. I do that too. Sometimes I'll take a scoop of each twice a day because I love it so much. And then the ashwagandha and the vitamin D plus K2, I just take, 1 and 2 in the morning and 1 vitamin D. And then I take the ashwagandha at night. So those are all the products we have right now, but we're going to be coming out with more coming soon, little by little. The pandemic really took me for a loop. So it was a while before we came out with a new one, but because we're just a small company, and I do give quite a bit of money towards childhood cancer research, because that was my husband and I's, mission to do. And I'm very, very proud to say that because our company it's been I think it's 5 years now, almost 5 years. In September, we've given close to 50,000 to childhood cancer research. And we give to the St. Baldrick's Foundation, which is a wonderful, wonderful childhood cancer foundation that helps with research, grants, and all those kind of things, which is highly, highly important because our government only gives 4% currently to childhood cancer research, which is disgusting. And I want to make a change to that. Because my heart was to always help everyone. And that's during Cooper's treatment, I actually started a nonprofit, which I wouldn't recommend that. And it was to help the families in town. And so I did that for a little while, for pretty much the whole time Cooper was sick. And I just helped families along the way. I gave them grants. I raised money. We did I don't even know how I did that. But anyways, I did let that go after 2017. And that was something I thought of, but my friend ended up taking over it, and she has a different one. She does the very same concept where she's helping, families with childhood cancer affected by childhood cancer. Her foundation is called Kindness Conquers, and she goes to the hospitals and she helps the kids, and she helps, her name is Carrie, and she was changed by my story, and she decided to start it because she can do it because she hasn't been through childhood cancer like I have, and it's just too much for me now. So that's why we give to research, because I feel like that's a hugely important, that we need to, hopefully the kids will stop getting childhood cancer, because about every 2 minutes a child gets childhood cancer. So it's really not as rare as everyone thinks. It's pretty devastating.
Right. Mary, I want to thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to share your story and to share your passion for wellness and longevity. I'm so excited to see what products Warrior Strong Wellness is going to be coming out with next. And hopefully we can get Kelly on board with get some ashwagandha going, Kel.
Yeah, for sure. Yes.
I do truly now feel joyful. I really do. I'm not faking it. I'm not feeling terrible inside, even though I'm kind of acting like I'm joyful. I'm not doing that anymore. And I'm thankful. And it feels, it does feel less heavy on my chest, like that shame and, of that feeling like, oh, I'm just feeling terrible, but I'm great. I'm feeling great. And there's going to be days that I'm not, but it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah.
So yeah. Thank you so much for letting me.
Thanks for sharing your story. You'll have to come back on again, especially as you add new products out there too. We want to hear about them. Thank you so much, Mary.
Thanks again.
Thank you guys. Have a great day.
Wonderful day.
Bye-bye.
Yeah,
Bye.
you too. Bye.
Thanks for listening and joining us today.
And don't forget to follow us on social media at Chasing Brighter or on our blog, chasingbrighter.com.